As a reward for his hard work and dedication, Lieutenant Edward James is given command of an even more deadly destroyer, the Wickes. Because this ship has never been commanded by the lieutenant before, he will have to undergo training once again. By spending 200,000 credits, the lieutenant is able to forego half of his experience penalty for the training on this new ship. The lieutenant has been intently studying his past battles, using the knowledge to increase his chances of success in the future. The abilities he has access to now are aiming expertise, which reduces the aiming time of all artillery-based weapons; torpedo armament expertise, which reduces the aiming and reload times for ships with torpedoes; high alert, which reduces the cooldown for the ship's repair ability; and finally, aerial reconnaissance, which increases aircraft visibility. After looking at the possible options, Lieutenant Edward James decides to improve the reload and aim time of his torpedoes. Now ready for battle, Lieutenant Edward James leaves the port in the Wickes. The enemy team has too few players, but has more higher tier ships. The Wickes destroyer has a very low detection range and a great deck-mounted artillery, further improving on the anti-destroyer role of previous American destroyers. The Wickes torpedoes are still below average compared to their Japanese rivals, however, both in range and in speed. Disabling secondary batteries and anti-aircraft weapons allows the destroyer to remain hidden by not automatically engaging enemy aircraft. Lieutenant Edward James heads southeast, hoping to engage enemy ships
Anti-aircraft
at
guns
close
and
range.
secondary armament disabled.
Team has taken the lead.
We can skip ahead about 2 minutes here, as the Wickes attempts to get into a position to attack. Heading south, Lieutenant James spots an enemy aircraft carrier and immediately begins to intercept. Firing high explosive rounds, the lieutenant watches for smoke, a sure sign of a deck fire. The enemy aircraft drops torpedoes, and the lieutenant is horrified to watch helplessly as a friendly cruiser plows directly into his ship. In what seems to be slow motion, the Wickes is pushed sideways, barely avoiding the oncoming torpedoes. The death of the enemy aircraft carrier ends this battle. The lieutenant is hardly pleased with his results, however, as he ended up in the bottom third of his team for experience earned. The Wickes is still in good working order though, and Lieutenant Edward James is diverted to another mission as he is on his way home. When he arrives at the new battle location, the lieutenant notices that most of the enemy and his allies are higher tier than he is, indicating that caution should be exercised. We can go ahead and skip right to the action, as the Wickes opens fire on an enemy destroyer, resetting the cap in the process. The ping of the incoming torpedoes comes at the last moment, allowing the lieutenant to barely avoid being killed by his own teammate. Remaining focused, Lieutenant James reverses direction, launching all of his torpedoes at the enemy fleet. Taking a direct hit during the turn, his entire crew is stunned momentarily. When the ringing in their ears subsides, Lieutenant Edward James orders that smoke be dropped. Turning away, the crew is able to put the fires out, as the lieutenant orders all guns to fire at the enemy cruiser. Continuing to take continuous fire, Lieutenant James disengages, using the island and the smoke to cover his escape route. The Wickes limps away, heading directly away from the most recent enemy battle locations. The lieutenant takes a moment to consider his options with his warship in such dire condition.
Smoke screen set.
The lieutenant spots an enemy cruiser that he believes is unaware of his presence. Firing torpedoes to force his inevitable turn, the Wickes put several shells into the enemy before he's able to disengage behind the island. Showing the great accuracy and reload of the Wickes, Lieutenant Edward James is able to rack up almost constant damage while avoiding return fire. Dropping smoke to hide his approach, the lieutenant closes in on an enemy battleship.
Smoke generator started.
Easily avoiding the torpedoes dropped by the incoming aircraft, the lieutenant takes aim and launches a
Anti-aircraft
salvo
guns
of
and
torpedoes.
secondary armament disabled.
The Wickes dives to the left, narrowly avoiding a salvo from an enemy ship, only to have the battleship fire a gigantic salvo that rips the Wickes to fragments. The battle results show Lieutenant Edward James earned the least amount of experience on his team. His naval superiors are even less impressed, requiring explanation as to his poor performance. Thanks for watching, and if you liked what you saw, please click subscribe below.